It was a crisp October afternoon in 1983 when 12-year-old Tommy Granger waved goodbye to his friends and headed home from school just like he had every day before. But that day, he never made it. No one saw him leave the building. No one saw him get on his bike. And no one saw him ever again. For decades, the case haunted the small town of Fairridge. Posters faded, leads dried up, and hope quietly dissolved. Then 25 years later, during renovations under the school gymnasium floor, a construction worker's shovel struck something soft. A plastic bag. Inside it, a decayed T-shirt. One that still bore the faint handwritten name, Tommy G. The discovery of Tommy Granger's T-shirt under the gym floor sent shockwaves through the small community of Fairridge. No one expected it. Not after 25 years of silence. The janitor who found it, Henry Calloway, said he first thought it was just trash sealed inside a maintenance tunnel. But when he opened the bag and saw the faded fabric and that name stitched inside, he dropped it. His hands were shaking. Authorities sealed off the area within hours. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Forensics teams dug carefully, inch by inch, beneath the old gymnasium foundation, which hadn't been touched since the school was built in the late 60s. That's when they found the second item, a shoelace, threaded through two small eyelets, the same brand Tommy wore in 1983. And then came something far worse. Just 12 inches beneath the shirt, wrapped in plastic, partially preserved by the absence of oxygen and moisture, were bones. Small bones, a radius, a femur, part of a jaw. DNA tests would later confirm what no one wanted to believe. It was Tommy. In 1983, Tommy's disappearance had briefly made local news, but with no signs of struggle, police believed he had run away. He was quiet, artistic, not very social. His family insisted he would never leave without saying goodbye. But there were no witnesses, no threats, no ransom notes, only a void. The school conducted interviews, locker searches, nothing. One teacher claimed to have seen him heading toward the east stairwell, an area that led directly to the old boiler room and utility access beneath the gym. But no one had followed up on that clue. It was chalked up to misremembering, forgotten, like Tommy. Now, decades later, that oversight was a scar across the whole town. The superintendent at the time, now retired and living in Florida, released a written statement saying, "If mistakes were made, we regret them deeply." But for Tommy's mother, Linda, there were no words that could smooth over the ache of having lost her only child, not to time, but to silence. She had kept his room untouched for 15 years. She finally donated his clothes to charity on his 30th birthday. But she never let go of the photo, Tommy wearing the same T-shirt, smiling with a popsicle in hand, one sock falling down. Now that photo sat on a courtroom desk beside a Ziploc bag of bones. The case was reopened. Cold case investigators combed through 1983 faculty rosters, janitorial staff logs, delivery records, anything to find someone who might have had access to that sub-gym crawl space. Then came the breakthrough. A former maintenance worker, Gerald Finn, had been employed at the school for just 2 months, from August to October 1983. He'd been let go for unreliable behavior, though no formal complaints were ever filed. His record vanished after that. No tax filings, no address history. Until 1991, when he was arrested in another state for loitering near an elementary school. At the time, it didn't raise enough flags. But now, he was suspect number one. Police tracked Gerald Finn to a halfway house in rural Nevada. He was 74, frail, and reportedly suffering from dementia. When shown a photo of Tommy Granger, he flinched. Investigators questioned him for hours. He rambled, cried, denied, laughed. But eventually, in a moment of clarity, he muttered, "He wasn't supposed to be there. The door was open. I told him to go. I told him..." That was enough. They charged him with murder. In the courtroom, Tommy's mother sat in silence as the charges were read. The only sound came from a creaking chair and the soft hum of fluorescent lights overhead. There was no joy in justice, only breath and grief. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Testimony revealed that Gerald Finn had a disturbing history, one that had been allowed to slip through cracks in the system. Several complaints, a sealed juvenile record, and no one had connected the dots. The jury found him guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But for Linda Granger, that meant little. "I don't want revenge," she said in a rare interview. "I want time. I want the 25 birthdays I missed. I want to hear his laugh again. And I can't get that from a courtroom." The school gymnasium was torn down. In its place, the town built a garden. Circular, quiet. lined with birch trees and small stepping stones. At the center stands a sculpture, a boy's t-shirt cast in bronze, fluttering in an invisible breeze. Etched on the base, for Tommy, for the children who vanish in silence, and for the ones who will be heard. Months after the verdict, the small town of Fairridge still found itself whispering about Tommy Granger, at coffee shops, on porches, between library aisles. But the tone had changed. No longer just hushed horror, now there was reflection. There was weight. And more importantly, there was movement. A high school English teacher named Mr. Calder, who had taught in the same building where Tommy once roamed the halls, began a yearly storytelling project. He called it the Lost Voices Essay. Students were asked to write a story, real or imagined, about someone who vanished. The only rule: the person must be remembered as more than a victim. Tell me who they were. Tell me what they loved. Tell me the jokes they would have told at 30. It became one of the school's most powerful traditions. Some students cried. Some interviewed family members. Some said it was the first time they'd ever thought about the weight of a single missing child. Elsewhere, a man named Cole Harrow, Tommy's childhood neighbor, now a grown man with kids of his own, started a podcast after the bell. Each episode told the story of a different child who never made it home from school. His first episode, Tommy's. He opened it with the sentence, "He walked past my window every day at 3:05. One day he didn't. The podcast drew national attention. By the end of the first season, Cole had helped spotlight 3 other cold cases, one of which was reopened because a listener came forward with new information. Tommy's story, once buried, was now uncovering truth for others. Meanwhile, Linda Granger donated the settlement money she received from the civil suit against the school district to start a foundation, the Tommy G Initiative. Its mission to fund safer building codes in schools and install interior surveillance near maintenance areas, storage wings and dead-end corridors, places where a child could be lost without a sound. The first school to implement the full model, Tommy's. A plaque was installed at the entrance. This school remembers. This school protects. Every October 12th, the day Tommy disappeared, the garden at the old gym site hosts a candle vigil. There's no press, no hashtags, just light. 1 candle per child currently missing in the county. 1 for Tommy. And 1 for all the ones still hidden, not just in basements and buildings, but in the spaces of silence we too often ignore. At the heart of all this movement, all this momentum, remains a boy who loved drawing airplanes, who hated broccoli, who once tried to tape a penny to his tooth to fool the tooth fairy, who wanted to be a pilot when he grew up because pilots always come home. He didn't, but his name flew farther than he ever could have imagined. And so in the town of Fairridge, the wind still rustles the birch trees over the memorial. The children still run across the lawn where the gym used to stand. And each of them carries, even unknowingly, a small echo of Tommy Granger. Because some disappearances don't end with finding bones. They end when we stop being afraid to tell the story out loud. The truth about Tommy's disappearance might have been buried for 25 years, but its consequences had quietly shaped the town for just as long. Some of the people involved never returned to Fairridge. Some stayed and carried the weight in silence. And others, like Tommy's classmates, had lived their entire lives with a shadow they couldn't quite name. At the 30-year high school reunion of what would have been Tommy's graduating class, his name was listed on a chair at the far end of the auditorium, a folded cap and gown resting on the seat. Many former classmates stopped by. Some left notes, some left tears. One note read, "You would have been this quiet genius of our class. I always thought you'd grow up to build spaceships. I hope you're flying them now." Another simply said, "I'm sorry, I should have said something." That note was unsigned. The school counselor who worked in the 1980s, Mrs. Lee Harmon, finally spoke out in a local news interview. Now in her 70s, she admitted there were rumors about the maintenance tunnels, about Gerald. But back then, we were told to focus on discipline, not danger. We didn't know how to listen. She paused, then added, "But that's not an excuse. I carry him with me, every day." At the state level, Tommy's case helped push forward legislation requiring all schools to report maintenance and utility access points in child safety audits, a requirement that didn't exist before. The bill was signed quietly, but the plaque behind the governor read, "For the ones who were lost where no one thought to look." And still, Tommy's story lives on in more subtle places. In the hallway design of new elementary schools, where dead ends are replaced by open-flow layouts. In missing persons brochures handed out at PTA meetings. In the nervous glances between parents when a child is 5 minutes late from school. Tommy's mother, Linda, never moved away. She still lives on the same street in the same home where her son left one morning and never came back. Her house has changed, though. The walls are covered with drawings children from local schools send her sketches every year on October 12th. Airplanes, stars, T-shirts blowing in the wind. Sometimes even portraits of Tommy recreated from that single school photo. She saves every one of them. They see him, she once said. After all this time, they see him. A mural now stands on the side of the new Fairridge Library. It's painted in soft blues and whites. A school hallway stretches into the horizon. At the far end in silhouette stands a young boy holding a kite. His T-shirt flutters behind him like wings. Above him are the words, "We searched, we failed, we learned, we will not forget." The final item found beneath the gym floor, the one police didn't release to the press, was a small plastic whistle, the kind given in gym class. It was wrapped in cloth, tucked beneath the bones. They gave it to Linda. She didn't speak. She just held it in her palm for a long time. Later, she told a reporter, "I used to tell Tommy to blow his whistle if he ever felt scared or lost. I guess he did. We just didn't hear him in time." Tommy's story is no longer just about a crime. It's about listening. It's about the spaces between what's said and what's silenced. It's about the doors we never think to open, the cracks we assume are empty, and the children who still slip through them. 3 years after the trial, a man named Adam Riley came forward. He had been a freshman at Fairridge Middle School when Tommy disappeared. They shared one class art every Wednesday morning. They'd spoken maybe twice. I wasn't his friend, Adam admitted. But I remember his backpack. It was too big for his body, and he always walked leaning forward like he was afraid it would tip him over. Adam had become a high school art teacher, but for decades he carried something quiet guilt, though he hadn't known why. I saw something once, a janitor, not our usual one, standing too close to Tommy near the back stairwell. I didn't think it was strange at the time. Now I wish I had. He wrote an essay about it, titled "The Glance I Ignored." It went viral. Shared by teachers across the country, discussed in seminars, translated into 7 languages. And above all, it sparked something rare responsibility. A group of school administrators in Oregon adopted new policies for faculty training based on Tommy's case. They called the program Pause Before You Dismiss. One training video shows a dramatization of a student pausing outside a storage room glancing back. The narrator says, "This is the moment most of us ignore. This is the moment that matters." At a university in Illinois, a professor of social work opened his lecture with Tommy's photo and said, "You will meet Tommy in your career. Maybe not by that name, but you'll meet him. The quiet one, the polite one, the one who lingers after class just a little too long. Your job is to see him before he's a headline." Meanwhile, Linda Granger kept receiving letters. From children, from teachers, from complete strangers. One was from a woman in Ohio whose daughter had gone missing for 2 days before being found. "It was your son's story that gave me the courage to scream at the police to keep searching. They told me she probably ran away, but I told them no because Tommy didn't run away either." Another was from a father in Michigan who said, "I never used to walk my daughter to school. Now I do. Every day. And we talk about Tommy." Linda eventually started speaking publicly. Not often, but when she did, people listened. Her voice was soft but steady. She never raised it. She didn't have to. She once told a classroom of 6th graders, "When someone is quiet, that doesn't mean they don't have anything to say. It means they're waiting for someone who's willing to hear them." And what of the school itself? Fairridge Middle was eventually renamed. Not erased, but evolved. It became Tommy Granger Academy for Awareness and Safety in Education. They kept one hallway untouched. The same tiles. The same lockers. The same old drinking fountain where Tommy once got a nosebleed in the 6th grade and told the nurse it looked like a strawberry slushie. It became a reflective space where students leave written notes about anything they've noticed that made them uncomfortable. The school calls it the See Something Wall. No comment is too small, no concern dismissed. Every Friday, a committee reviews the submissions. Every single one. And then there are the dreams. Linda says she still sees Tommy sometimes, in the garden, on his bike, wearing his favorite red sneakers and that backpack. She says he never speaks in his dreams, but he's not afraid. He just waves. She wakes up smiling and crying at the same time. Tommy Granger never came home. But his story now lives in thousands of homes, in thousands of children who are seen, who are heard, who are walked to school, who are told, "If anything ever feels wrong, you tell me, and I will believe you." because silence took a child. But awareness is saving more. Tommy Granger never made it home from school in 1983. But because someone finally looked beneath the surface, because someone finally listened, his silence became a voice that echoes across generations. What part of Tommy's story stayed with you the most? Let us know in the comments. We read everyone. Drop a candle emoji to honor children like Tommy who deserve to be remembered and protected. Like this video if you believe no child should ever vanish without someone asking why. Subscribe to Tim Stories for more real-life narratives that expose, inspire, and never let the truth stay buried. And if this story moved you, please share it, because you never know whose voice might be waiting to be heard before it's too late. Until next time, be present, be brave, and above all, be the person who notices.